Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The maps were spread wide, the markers sliding like small soldiers across plastic, and the men leaned in as if proximity gave them authority. But her chair sat at the edge, 1 foot further back than the rest. A space too wide, deliberate. She hadn't been told to sit there. She just knew her place. The colonel's voice droned over the hum of the generator. Coordinates, crossroads, contingency plans. His words ricocheted off the walls of the tent, hitting the men at the table square in the chest and skimming right past her. She didn't take notes. She already knew the terrain by memory. The river bend, the high ridge, the orchard wall that gave partial cover but blocked a clean shot after dusk. She had walked that ground days ago, silent under a moon that seemed too pale to trust. She should have spoken up. She should have reminded them. But the last time she tried, her words landed flat, smothered by someone else's louder voice. And so she stayed quiet. Her fingers brushed the edge of the map, almost absent-mindedly, almost like she might move one of those markers herself. But she pulled her hand back. It wasn't her place. Not here, not yet. They called the operation straightforward. Insert, secure, extract. Nothing ever went that way. She could see it already in the gaps between their words. The orchard wall, the blind approach, the choke point by the road. She knew where the silence would break. But she said nothing. Because there was something she hadn't told them. Not yet. The tent emptied fast once the colonel dismissed them, chairs scraping, boots hitting gravel. The men slapped shoulders, traded quiet jokes. One or two glanced her way, but not for long. She was a shadow trailing behind them, her silence taken for distance or arrogance or both. Outside, the night carried a smell of diesel and dust. The airbase was alive but weary, the drone of engines never fully stopping, the floodlights painting everything in false daylight. She tilted her head back and let the cold bite her cheeks. 1,000 stars and not one seemed steady. She walked alone, she always did. The barracks door stuck before it opened, hinges whining. Inside, the bunks were loud with chatter, cards slapped on metal, someone humming off-key. She found her rack without looking, tossed her pack and sat. The steel frame shivered beneath her. No one asked what she thought of the mission. Maybe that was good, because if they had, she wasn't sure what she would have said. Her hands trembled when she unlaced her boots. Not fear, not yet, something else. The same shake that always came the night before an op, a coil wound too tight. She flexed her fingers one by one, then dug them into her knees. She remembered the orchard wall again. She remembered the way it looked under moonlight. And she remembered the sound, or rather the lack of it. No dogs barking, no insects humming, just silence. Too complete, too staged. Something was wrong out there. But she hadn't told them, not yet. The light clicked off in sections as men crawled into bunks, muttering final words before dreams pulled them under. She lay flat, staring at the underside of the rack above her. A scratch in the metal traced the outline of some soldier's initials, half carved, half finished. She reached up and touched it, just for something real. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it came in fragments. Her father's voice, the weight of a rifle too big for her 10-year-old arms, a field of tall grass, her knees brushing seed heads as she stumbled forward, eyes wet, ears ringing. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was supposed to wait by the truck. But the shouting had drawn her in, and the silence after had frozen her. She woke before dawn, breath sharp, sheets damp against her back. She sat up slow, shoulders tight, and pressed the heel of her hands into her eyes until the black behind them bloomed red. She dressed in silence, checked her gear twice. When she stepped outside, the horizon was bruised with first light. The chill caught in her throat. Engines coughed alive across the tarmac, sending fumes into the air. The mission was no longer theory on a map. It was minutes away. She caught her reflection in a window, pale, sharp, unflinching. She studied the set of her jaw, no glory, no praise, no smile. Only duty. But whose? Hers to them, or hers to someone else entirely? The convoy lined up, armored vehicles crouched low like beasts before release. Men climbed in, weapons clattering. She swung into her seat, the metal cold under her palms. "Ready?" a voice asked beside her. She turned. It was O'Neill. Broad-shouldered, quick grin, but his eyes gave him away. He wasn't ready either, not really. "Always," she said. Her voice surprised her, too steady. He nodded, believing her lie or needing to. The engines roared. The convoy rolled. The city unfolded slow, then fast. Empty streets, shuttered windows, the echo of their wheels loud in places where children should have been playing. A curtain shifted once, a shadow pulled back. But no voices, no laughter. Just silence. She tapped the side of her rifle with 2 fingers. Not a habit, not a superstition. A reminder this was real. Every second counted. The orchard came hours later. The sun was higher, heat leaning hard against their helmets. The ridge loomed the way she remembered it. The wall, too. But it looked different in daylight, too still. They fanned out, boots crunching dry earth, hands raised in silent signals. She moved with them, but slower, eyes tracing every window, every gap. Her breath came shallow, controlled. She felt it before she saw it. A pulse in the air, a weight pressing down. Then a flicker, a glint. Her hand shot up, halt. The men froze. Her eyes locked on the orchard wall. Stone, vines, and there, barely visible, the edge of metal. She knew what it was. A rifle set, waiting. Her chest tightened, her voice caught. She opened her mouth. But the first shot came before she spoke. The shot cracked the air like a whip. Stone dust burst from the wall near O'Neill's shoulder. He staggered, cursed, dove flat. The silence shattered, replaced by echoes bouncing hard between trees. She dropped behind the ridge, dirt biting her cheek. Her heart hammered once, twice, then settled into something tighter, sharper. Training kicked in, but fear lingered in the cracks. The orchard had always been wrong. She knew it. She had known it. Boots scrambled around her. Shouts cut through the static of adrenaline. "Sniper, cover!" Hands pointed, rifles raised, the squad scattering like thrown dice. Her rifle was already at her shoulder. She exhaled, steady, letting her eye find the scope. The orchard wall filled her sight, vines trembling from the impact. Nothing else. Not nothing, shadows, angles, stillness too deliberate. Her finger curled on instinct, then froze. Because behind the scope, behind the wall, she saw not one rifle, but 3. Her stomach dropped. "O'Neill down," she shouted. Her voice cracked the chaos, sharp enough that he obeyed before thinking. A split second later, the second shot buried itself into the tree where his head had been. Bark split, wood splintered. She swallowed hard. The orchard wasn't just a blind spot, it was a trap, a well-planned one. How had no one seen it? How had no one listened? Her teeth clenched, not the time. She adjusted her angle. The scope caught a flicker, movement between vines, too fast to be careless, deliberate, luring them. She squeezed off a shot, stone chipped, not a hit, but enough to force a shadow back. The air thickened, every breath was work. To her right, Sergeant Ruiz barked orders, voice steady despite the storm. Suppressing fire, shift left, push to cover. She moved with the line, belly low, rifle dragging earth. Bullets snapped above like angry hornets. She felt their heat, their intent. Then another sound, closer, a single cry. She whipped her head. One of the younger men, Collins, lay twisted, leg bleeding, shock widening his eyes. He wasn't crying from pain, not yet. He was crying from disbelief, that it had happened to him. Her body moved before her mind. She crawled, hands clawing dirt, ignoring the bullets that pressed overhead. She reached him, grabbed his vest, pulled. He groaned, teeth clenched, trying to help but too far gone in shock. "Stay down," she hissed. Her voice was low but firm, not soft, not cruel, real. His hands clutched her sleeve like a child. Don't leave me." She didn't answer. Words were wasted. She dragged him harder, each inch a war against gravity and fire. Ruiz and O'Neill laid suppressive rounds, barking curses into the orchard. Dust filled her throat. Sweat stung her eyes. Finally, cover. A ditch shallow enough to shield, deep enough to breathe. She pushed Collins down into it, tore fabric from her sleeve, wrapped tight around his leg. His face was pale, jaw trembling. "You'll be fine," she said, but inside she wasn't sure. Because she knew what blood loss meant out here. Her chest heaved. She checked her ammo, too little. The squad was pinned, their arcs narrowing. The orchard was winning. And still she hadn't told them, not everything. The silence she remembered, that absence of sound, not just suspicion. She had recognized it from years ago, another place, another field, another silence before the storm. Her father had heard it too. That day in the grass, rifle too big for her arms. He pulled her down beside him, eyes dark, finger to his lips. She hadn't understood then, only after. She clenched her jaw. That same silence was here now, which meant this wasn't random. It was staged perfectly. And they were in the middle of it. She wanted to tell Ruiz, to shout it over the fire, to admit what she knew, what she'd seen before, but words would raise questions, questions she couldn't answer. Not yet. A hand grabbed her shoulder. O'Neill. Sweat streaked his face, dirt smeared into his beard. "You saw it first," he panted. "How bad?" She met his eyes, thought of lying, thought of softening, but his pupils told her he didn't want comfort. He wanted the truth. "Worse than they think," she whispered. He nodded once, no surprise, just resignation. "Then we move now," he said. He crawled forward, shouting to Ruiz. Plans shifted midstream. Grenades primed. Fire redirected. The squad lurched as one body, muscle and breath and willpower pushing left. She stayed low, eyes sweeping the orchard. She wasn't just scanning. She was remembering the angles, the silences, the places a sniper would choose if they wanted maximum control. She spotted it, high in the orchard branches, half hidden behind leaves. Not movement, a shape too rigid to be wood. Her breath stilled. She steadied her rifle, finger curled. And then hesitation. What if it was bait? A bead of sweat slid from her temple into her eye. She blinked hard, forced clarity. Choice now. She fired. The branch cracked. A scream followed, brief, sharp, cut short by the ground. The gunfire paused, just for a second. A second was enough. Ruiz roared. O'Neill surged. The squad poured forward, their momentum breaking the orchard line. She pushed too, boots pounding dirt, lungs tearing. She vaulted the wall, heart slamming, rifle sweeping. Silence again, but not absence, aftermath. Bodies lay crumpled between rows of trees, weapons still smoking, the ambush broken. She stood among them, chest heaving, dust settling on her gear. The orchard smelled of sap and iron. But her eyes weren't on the bodies. They were on something else. A symbol carved into the trunk of a tree. Small, sharp, almost invisible. Her breath caught. She knew that mark, because she had seen it once before. And she hadn't told anyone, not yet. Why did the symbol look so familiar? The mark on the tree wasn't large, just 3 shallow lines intersecting, carved with something sharp, done quickly but deliberately. A hunter's sign, a farmer's idle scratch. No, not here, not after what they had just walked through. Her fingers hovered near it, but she didn't touch. Touching would make it too real. Boots crunched behind her. She turned, rifle still high, but it was only Ruiz. His helmet was tilted back, sweat streaking lines through the dust on his face. He squinted at her, then at the mark. "What is it?" he asked. She hesitated. Her throat was dry, lips stiff. She could have told him the truth, that she had seen this before, years ago, on a wall halfway across another country, etched near where her father fell. But the words stayed locked. Just a scratch, she muttered, lowering her rifle. Ruiz grunted, unconvinced but too drained to press. He clapped her shoulder once and moved on, rallying the others, checking for injuries. The orchard was quiet again. Not peace, aftermath. A silence heavy with what had almost been lost. She knelt by Collins, who had been dragged in with them, pale and shivering but alive. His blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage, dark and stubborn. His eyes found hers, glassy but focused. "You didn't leave me," he whispered. Her jaw tightened. "I said I wouldn't." It wasn't comfort. It was a statement, a contract. Collins swallowed, lips trembling. Most would have. She looked away. The words clawed at her chest, because he wasn't wrong. She had seen men left behind before, written off as too heavy, too slow, and she had watched what that did to those who came home. She pressed the bandage tighter. Collins hissed, then passed out. O'Neill crouched beside her. His grin was gone now, replaced by something harder. "He'll make it." "If we move fast," she said. "And if we do?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. His silence stretched, then he nodded once, lips pressed thin. Around them the squad gathered, weapons half raised, eyes scanning the orchard for movement that wasn't there. Ruiz barked into the radio, clipped words, static answers. No reinforcements. Not soon. They were on their own until they made it back. The orchard stretched long, rows of trees fading into haze. The sun beat down, cruel and unrelenting. Sweat carved lines down her spine, stinging the fresh scratches on her arms. She forced herself to focus, not on the pain, not on the exhaustion, on the mark. It was the same, she was sure. That day years ago, the tall grass, the rifle too heavy, her father pulling her low, his hand warm, his voice steady. The fight that came after, the silence that followed. And later, when she had wandered, dazed, broken, past a wall pocked with bullet holes, she had seen it. The same 3 lines, cut sharp, angled the same way. A mark left by someone who wanted to be remembered, or by someone who wanted to be known. But known by who? Her stomach turned. She shoved the thought down. This wasn't the place. This wasn't the time. Yet she couldn't stop seeing it, couldn't stop hearing her father's voice in the back of her head. Pay attention to what others ignore. That's where the truth hides. She forced her rifle back into her hands, as if the weight would keep her steady. They moved out slow, careful, weaving between rows of trees, every step a test. The orchard seemed endless, shadows stretching long, every branch a threat. She kept her eyes forward, but her thoughts pulled backward. To the day she left home, the arguments, her mother's silence sharper than any words, her brother's look somewhere between pride and fear, the unspoken question in his eyes, why you, why not me? She hadn't answered then either, because the truth would have broken them. She hadn't joined for glory. She hadn't joined for country. She had joined because silence haunted her. Because the day her father fell, the world had gone quiet, and no one else had understood what that meant. So she carried it alone. "Eyes up," Ruiz barked. She blinked hard, snapped back into the present. The orchard ended ahead, spilling into open ground. Fields stretched wide, grass brittle under the sun, too exposed. Her chest tightened. Open fields meant open targets. O'Neill muttered low beside her, "Feels wrong." "Because it is," she said. He glanced at her, brow furrowed. "You always know before it happens. How?" Her throat closed. She wanted to tell him, wanted to uncoil the truth about the silence, about the mark, about the memory burned into her bones. But instead, she said, "You just learn to listen." He studied her for a second longer, then looked away. But not before she saw it, a flicker of trust, or maybe fear. They crossed into the field, moving fast, low. Every rustle of grass sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind carried the threat of voices. Then faint, carried on the air a sound. Not gunfire, not vehicles. A cry sharp, human. They froze, eyes darted, weapons lifted. The cry came again, Closer this time. Collins stirred weakly in Ruiz's arms. "Civilian," he mumbled. "Maybe, maybe not." The sound hooked her chest, dragged her forward. She moved before orders were given, boots cutting through grass, rifle steady. The squad followed, tense, weapons sweeping arcs. The cries led them to a shallow depression in the field, a ditch, overgrown, almost hidden. And inside a child. Small, dirty, shaking, eyes wide with terror. Her breath caught, her rifle dipped. The child couldn't have been older than 8. Clothes torn, face streaked with tears. Hands clutching something to their chest, a ragged doll limp with dirt. She froze, not because of the child, because of the memory. She had been that small once, holding onto something broken in a world already torn apart. Her knees felt weak, her chest squeezed. Ruiz cursed softly, "What the hell?" O'Neill muttered, "Trap." The child whimpered, not words, just fear. She stepped closer, slow, careful. Her rifle hung low, hands open. The child's eyes flicked to hers, and for a moment she swore they saw her, not as a soldier, not as a threat, but as someone who had once been the same. She crouched, her voice was softer than she'd expected. "It's okay." The child trembled, then shook their head, pointing with a dirty hand not at her, not at the squad, at the horizon. Her blood ran cold. She followed the point and saw them. Figures on the ridge, not many but enough. Watching, waiting. The child's cry hadn't been random, it had been warning. Her heart pounded, her rifle rose again. The mark, the silence, the child. It wasn't over, not even close. Why were they just standing there? The figures on the ridge didn't move, didn't shoot, didn't advance, they just watched. Shadows against the horizon, shapes blurred by heat, enough to count at least half a dozen, maybe more, weapons slung, carried loose but ready. Their stillness was worse than fire. It felt like judgment. Her breath hitched in her chest. She raised her rifle, scope tight against her eye. Through glass, the ridge sharpened, one figure stood taller, stiller, like a post driven into earth. She adjusted, heartbeat thudding. Then she saw it. On the taller one's sleeve, a patch, torn, frayed, and beneath it carved faint into the rifle stock the same mark, 3 lines intersecting. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't coincidence. Her finger hovered on the trigger, just a breath away, but she didn't fire, because they weren't firing either. Ruiz's voice cut low, strained. "Orders." No one spoke for a long moment. The squad shifted uneasily, weapons aimed, sweat dripping down brows. Collins whimpered in Ruiz's grip, semi-conscious, his pale face twitching. The child in the ditch hugged their doll tighter, rocking slightly, eyes darting between soldier and horizon. "They're watching us," O'Neill muttered. "Yeah," Ruiz said sharp, "and we'll watch back." But it wasn't that simple, she knew it. The mark wasn't just a symbol, it was a message, a reminder. She felt it pressing against her ribs, pushing memory to the surface. Her father had whispered about it once, not to her directly but to someone else late at night when he thought she was asleep. "They leave it like a scar," he'd said, "so the land remembers." She hadn't understood then, she barely did now. The ridge figures shifted just slightly, then pulled back, fading behind the line like mist evaporating. No fire, no chase, just disappearance. The squad exhaled as one, tension releasing with sharp edges. O'Neill spat in the dirt. "They had us. Why the hell let us go?" No one answered. Because she knew the truth wasn't one anyone wanted to say out loud. It wasn't mercy. It was choice. They weren't finished yet. Ruiz shook his head, scanning the field. "We move now." They regrouped fast. The child was pulled up from the ditch, small hands clutching O'Neill's sleeve as if he were anchor. He looked down, uneasy, but didn't push the child away. Collins was shifted between 2 men, his groans faint but alive. The squad trudged forward through the brittle grass toward the faint line of structures on the horizon. Shelter, maybe, or more traps. At that point, it didn't matter. They needed cover, water, time. The sun dragged heavy across the sky, pressing heat into their bones. Sweat stung her eyes, soaked her vest. Her rifle weighed double. Her lungs felt scraped raw, but her mind wouldn't quiet. The mark, her father's words, the figures letting them go. And the child. She glanced at the small figure beside O'Neill. The child's lips moved silently, words she couldn't hear. Maybe prayers, maybe names she wanted to ask, but she didn't, not yet. They reached the buildings by dusk. Clay walls, roofs sagging, windows empty sockets, abandoned long ago. The air smelled stale, like dust that hadn't been stirred in years. Ruiz directed them inside. They swept the rooms, rifles slicing air, boots crunching broken glass. Empty. No voices, no bodies, just ghosts. "Hold here," Ruiz said. "We'll move at first light." The squad dropped heavy, backs against walls, exhaustion swallowing them whole. She found a corner, slid down, rifle across her knees. She forced herself to breathe steady, even. But her hands still trembled faintly, not from fear, from restraint. She wanted to carve the truth out of herself, to tell them, to admit that the mark wasn't new, that she had seen it before, that this fight was older than all of them. But words locked behind her teeth. Because admitting it meant admitting what she carried, what she had never said out loud. Her father hadn't died in an accident. He hadn't died a hero, clean and simple. He had died chasing the same men who had carved those marks, fallen in the silence between ambush and retreat. And she had been there, a child clutching a rifle too big, listening to the silence after. Her chest ached. She closed her eyes, pressed her palms to them, trying to ease the weight. A sound broke the stillness. Not gunfire, not boots, a soft whimper. The child. They sat in the far corner, knees pulled up, doll clutched tight. Their eyes flicked up, caught hers. She hesitated, then stood, crossing the broken floor. She crouched slow, setting her rifle aside. The child stared, silent. Dust streaked their cheeks, lips cracked. She spoke low, "What's your name?" The child blinked, swallowed, then whispered something too faint to catch. She leaned closer, "Say it again." This time it was clearer, "Isla." Her breath caught. Because the name was familiar. A name her father had once spoken, years ago, to someone on a scratchy radio. A name carried in fragments through memory, half lost but never gone. She froze, her hands clenched. "Who are you?" she whispered. The child tilted their head, confused, as if the question made no sense. O'Neill's voice broke the moment. "She bothering you, kid?" Isla flinched, eyes darting to the floor. She straightened, shaking her head. "No." O'Neill gave her a long look, not suspicious, just tired. Then he turned back, muttering to Ruiz about rotations. She sat back against the wall, pulse racing. The name, the mark, the silence. It was all connected. She felt it deep as marrow. But she couldn't tell them, not yet. The night dragged slow. Rotations changed. Men dozed fitful, rifles in their laps. The child curled up, doll clutched tight, breathing uneven but steady. Collins drifted in and out, fever hot, whispers of home spilling in delirium. She stayed awake, watching, listening. Because she knew. They hadn't been spared, they had been marked. And when dawn came, it would begin again. Why did dawn feel like betrayal? The first light spilled through the broken windows, painting the room in a false peace. Dust floated in the beams, glowing like something holy. But the air was wrong, too heavy, too quiet. She hadn't slept, couldn't. Her eyes burned raw, but her body was sharp with a tension that never loosened. She sat against the wall, rifle across her knees, eyes tracing the edges of shadows. The others stirred slow. Ruiz rubbed his neck, groaning low. O'Neill yawned, then spat into the dirt, muttering curses about dry rations. One of the younger men lit a cigarette, the flame too bright, too loud in the silence. Collins was worse. His skin had gone waxy, his lips cracked, sweat soaking his shirt. Fever burned him alive. His breaths came ragged, shallow. Each exhale sounded like it might be his last. She crouched beside him, checking the makeshift bandage. Blood had seeped through again, stubborn and thick. She pressed down harder, earning a faint groan from him. His eyes flickered open, glassy. "Home," he whispered. "Want to go home." Her chest tightened. She couldn't lie to him. She didn't know if he'd see it again. But she nodded anyway, forcing her voice steady. "You will." He gave a faint smile, small and broken, before slipping under again. Ruiz stood nearby, watching. His face was stone, but his eyes betrayed him. They lingered on Collins longer than a leader should. A second too long. A weakness too human. She understood. She had seen that look before. On her father. On the day he had turned his head just for a moment to check on her instead of the fight, and it had cost him everything. Her stomach turned. She clenched her jaw, looked away. The child was awake too. Isla, small knees pulled tight to chest, doll hugged close. Their eyes were wide, restless, not from sleep, from knowing. Children always knew more than adults wanted them to. She crouched again, softer this time. "You okay?" Isla blinked, then nodded, but it was too quick. A reflex, a shield. Her voice dropped. "That name, Isla, where's your family?" The child's mouth trembled. Then they whispered, "Gone." The word was simple, heavy. A stone dropped into water. She swallowed, throat dry. She wanted to ask more, wanted to pry at the silence, but Ruiz called out sharp. "We move, now, before they circle back." Boots scraped, rifles clicked, packs slung. The squad was slower now, every step dragging. The fight had carved something from them that wouldn't grow back. They left the building behind, stepping into dawn's raw light. The horizon stretched wide, fields rolling like waves. The ridge where the figures had stood loomed faint in the distance, watching still. Every sound felt amplified, boots crunching, metal clinking, Collins' uneven breaths, the child's doll dragging faint against cloth. They moved in silence, but inside her head noise built. The mark, the name, her father's voice. She remembered the night before he left for the last time. He had knelt by her bed, hand rough on her shoulder. His eyes were tired, but his voice was soft. "Sometimes duty finds you," he said, "even if you don't want it, and when it does, you don't run, you carry it." She hadn't understood then. She was beginning to now. A shout snapped her back. O'Neill raised his fist, signaling halt. Ahead the ground dipped. A ravine, shallow but winding, slicing through the fields, cover and danger all at once. Ruiz scanned it, jaw tight. "We go through." No one argued. They were too tired to argue. They slid down into the ravine, boots sliding, dirt loose underfoot. The air grew cooler, damp. Shadows stretched long. She walked near the back, rifle up, eyes sweeping. The child clung to O'Neill's side, silent but trembling. Collins groaned faintly, carried by two men whose arms shook under his weight. Every sound echoed double. Every breath bounced back. It felt like walking through the throat of something alive. Her chest tightened. She knew this feeling. She had walked this before. And then she saw it. Another mark carved into the stone wall of the ravine. The same 3 lines. Her knees nearly buckled. She stopped dead, staring. It wasn't coincidence anymore. It was a trail, a message, or a warning. Her breath came shallow. Her rifle trembled in her hands. "Move," Ruiz barked. The line pushed forward. But she couldn't. Not until her fingers brushed the mark. Not until the stone cut her skin. The same, exactly the same. She felt her father's voice in her chest, felt the silence of that day. Her vision blurred for a moment. She blinked hard, swallowed the burn in her throat, and forced herself back into step. Because if the squad saw her falter, they asked, and she wasn't ready to answer, not yet. The ravine twisted, shadows deepened. A crow cawed somewhere above, sharp and lonely. Then gunfire. It ripped from both sides, pouring into the ravine like floodwater. Men shouted, dropped, scrambled for cover. Collins screamed as he was hit again, blood spraying. O'Neill shoved the child flat, throwing himself over them, bullets sparking off stone. She dove hard, dirt slamming into her chest. Rifle up, eyes cutting through chaos. Figures lined the ravine edge, rifles flashing. The air stank of gunpowder and blood. Pinned again. Her pulse raced, but her mind cut sharp. Angles, lines, silence. She scanned. There a gap, a shadow between flashes, a shooter breaking rhythm. She exhaled, squeezed. A figure toppled. The fire stuttered just enough. Ruiz roared. The squad surged, laying rounds up and out, teeth bared, fury fueled by desperation. But she wasn't firing blind. She was searching, always searching. And then she found it. Up on the ridge above the ravine, not shooting, just watching. The tall figure, the one with the mark. Her scope tightened, breath frozen. Their eyes, she swore, locked on hers. Not enemy, not stranger, something worse. Recognition. Her chest clenched. Because in that split second she knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't war in the way they thought. This was personal. And it had been waiting for her all along. Why did the gunfire sound like echoes of memory? Each burst rattled the stone, but in her head it was different. Sharper, louder, like the crack of that last day. The one she never spoke of. The one that carved her silence into something permanent. The ravine had become a coffin. Stone walls funneled bullets down like rain. The squad pressed flat, pinned, every movement risk. Dirt sprayed, metal screamed. Collins was down again, clutching his side, a wet sound choking his throat. One of the men tried to drag him deeper into cover, but the blood trail stretched bright behind them. Too much, too fast. The child cried without sound, face buried in O'Neill's chest, doll clutched so hard it seemed strained. O'Neill's jaw clenched, teeth grinding as he shielded them, firing one-handed up the ridge. Ruiz barked orders, voice raw. Suppress left, move right, don't stop. But his tone cracked under the weight of it. He was holding them together with nothing but will. Her rifle steadied on the ridge. Not the chaos, not the muzzle flashes, just the figure standing above, watching, unmoving. The mark, the same one. Carved here, carved there, carved into her. She blinked hard, her scope trembling. Her finger curled, ready, but she froze. Because their posture, their stance, it wasn't enemy. It wasn't predator. It was something worse. It was recognition. Her breath hitched, her mind scrambled. Who? Why? A shout tore her back, Ruiz's voice hoarse. Now push. The squad surged, desperate, rounds hammering upward, forcing a gap. Men scrambled, slipping in mud, hauling Collins, dragging breath from lungs they didn't have to spare. She fired sharp and clean, covering the climb. One target fell, another scattered. She carved space with silence between shots. But her eyes kept pulling back, to the ridge, to them. Still watching, still waiting. And then gone. She blinked, the figure vanished like smoke. Her pulse pounded, louder than the fight. They clawed out of the ravine, scrambling onto open ground. The air above felt thin, brittle. The squad staggered, coughing, bleeding, some barely upright. Collins collapsed, not from fire, from his body giving up. His chest heaved, blood soaking the dirt beneath him. She dropped beside him, hands pressing down, futile against the tide. His eyes fluttered, finding her. "You're quiet," he rasped, "always so damn quiet." Her throat locked. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck, strangled in her chest. He coughed, blood speckling his lips, then gave a faint grin. "Guess we need that, someone who listens." And then his breath left, slow, heavy, final. The squad froze. No one spoke. The silence cut deeper than the fire had. Ruiz bowed his head, eyes closed tight. his fist pressed to his helmet. Just a second, just enough. Then he lifted, voice iron again. We keep moving, we don't stop here. He wouldn't want that. But the words cracked, everyone heard it. They rose, shoulders heavy, boots dragging. Leaving Collins behind felt like betrayal, but carrying him was impossible, and survival demanded cruelty. The child held tighter to O'Neill, their face hidden, but tears dripped onto his sleeve. Her hands shook as she picked up her rifle, blood still on her palms. Not her blood, not this time. Her eyes flicked to the ridge again, empty, but the mark burned in her head. It wasn't random, not chance. This fight had been waiting for them, for her. She walked in silence, but inside the storm raged. The memories clawed. Her father's voice, his last mission, his silence before the end, the mark on the ridge that day. She had buried it, she had locked it down, but now it was back. Not memory, not ghost, flesh, real. The squad moved slow, cutting through open fields toward another cluster of ruins. A church once, walls shattered, roof torn away. Stained glass shards glinted in the dirt, scattered like jewels under the sky. They took shelter, weary bodies collapsing against stone, packs dropped, rifles leaned. No one spoke at first. Then Ruiz, voice low, heavy. We're not making it to extraction at this pace. No one argued. The truth was naked. O'Neill looked up, eyes hollow. What do you want us to do? Leave the kid, leave the wounded, that your call, Captain. The words sliced, tension flared. Ruiz's jaw tightened. We don't leave anyone. But his eyes flicked to her, just for a second. She felt it, the unspoken, the weight. Because she wasn't wounded, but she was marked, different, watching something the others couldn't see. And Ruiz had noticed. The child crawled closer to her then. Isla, small fingers tugged her sleeve, eyes wide, searching. You know them, Isla whispered, don't you? Her stomach dropped, her pulse stuttered. She froze, every muscle locked. The squad hadn't heard, but Isla's words cut clean. Because they were right. She did know. And the silence she carried, it wasn't protection anymore. It was a lie unraveling. Why did everyone's eyes feel heavier than the rifle on her back? The ruined church gave shelter but not peace. The air inside was thick with dust and smoke. Sunlight slanted through shattered windows, casting fractured colors across their faces. For a moment, it looked almost sacred, but no one felt holy here. They sat in silence, the kind that burns, each man, each shadow carrying his own ghosts. Collins' absence filled the space like a wound that wouldn't close. His rifle lay against the wall, untouched, a reminder of what they'd left behind. She stayed near the doorway, rifle across her knees, eyes locked on the horizon. But she felt it, the weight of the squad's stares, not constant, not direct, but heavy. Suspicion crawled the edges of their silence. Ruiz broke it first, his voice low, controlled but edged. You saw something back in the ravine up on that ridge. Her throat tightened. He didn't stop. Don't lie, you froze, you had a shot and you didn't take it. Why? The others shifted, restless, boots scraping, breaths catching. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Because how could she tell them? That the figure wasn't stranger, that the mark carved into stone wasn't coincidence, that this war had found her long before she had picked up a rifle. O'Neill spat, breaking the tension. So what? She hesitated. We've all hesitated. Hell, Collins. His voice cracked on the name, then he stopped. But Ruiz's eyes never left her. This isn't hesitation. This is something else, something you're not saying. The child's voice cut the air then, small, fragile, but sharp. She knows them. Every head turned, the squad froze. Isla sat with knees pulled up, doll clutched tight, their eyes fixed on her, unblinking, certain. Her pulse spiked, her hands curled around her rifle. Ruiz's face darkened. Is that true? The silence that followed was unbearable. Every second stretched, heavy and accusing. She looked at the ground, jaw clenched. Then she forced the words out, raw and jagged. "I've seen that mark before." The air cracked. She lifted her gaze, meeting Ruiz's eyes. It was the last thing my father left behind. Murmurs rippled through the squad. O'Neill swore under his breath. One of the younger men muttered something about bad luck, cursed symbols. Ruiz stayed steady, voice iron. "Explain." She inhaled, chest tight. The memories clawed up, sharp and merciless. "My father was on a mission. Years ago, he never came back. All they found were ruins, burned out, bodies they couldn't name, and on the walls that mark." Her voice broke just slightly. "The same one I've seen here, the same one carved into stone like it's following us." The squad stared, silent. The weight of it pressed down on everyone. She swallowed, forcing her voice steady. "That figure on the ridge, I don't know who they are, but I know it's connected. To him, to me." The room felt colder. Ruiz paced, jaw tight, fists clenched. Then he stopped, staring at her. "So what are we walking into, a mission, or your past?" The question cut deeper than gunfire. She couldn't answer, not clean, not simple, because it was both, and she hated herself for knowing it. O'Neill's voice cracked the silence. "Doesn't matter, mission's the mission. Doesn't matter what ghosts we drag along." But even he sounded unsure. The child stood then, small legs trembling but eyes steady. They walked closer to her, slipping their tiny hand into hers. "They're waiting for you," Isla whispered. Her chest clenched. She looked down at the child, saw the truth burning in their gaze, too young to know war, old enough to know fate. Outside, wind rattled the broken windows. Distant echoes cracked the silence, not close, but near enough to remind them all. Time was running thin. Ruiz finally spoke, voice low. "We move before night. If this is tied to you, then we face it head-on. No more surprises, no more silence." She nodded, though her stomach turned, because silence was all she had known, and now it was gone. The squad rose, slow and weary, packs lifted, weapons checked, faces pale, eyes hollow, but resolve simmered. They stepped out of the church into fading light. The horizon bled red, the sun dipping low. Shadows stretched long across the fields, swallowing color, swallowing hope. They marched, the child between them, the weight of Collins behind them, the watcher ahead. She walked in silence, but her mind screamed. Her father's voice echoed with every step. "Sometimes duty finds you." The fields narrowed, rising toward another ridge, and there, faint but clear, the mark carved again into stone, waiting, calling. Her stomach turned to ice. Because this wasn't just battlefield anymore. It was destination. It was trap. And it was hers. Why did the path feel like it had already been walked? The ridge loomed, black against a bleeding sky. Every step toward it pulled like gravity, like memory. The squad climbed slow, breath ragged, boots dragging. The child stayed close, doll tucked against chest, eyes wide but unblinking. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The silence said enough. At the top, the world opened. A plateau. Stones scattered like broken teeth. Old ruins half buried, walls cracked, the ground scarred. The wind cut sharp across the open, carrying the smell of smoke, faint but familiar. And there, waiting. The figure. Tall, still, a shadow against fading light. Their rifle lowered but their stance rigid, watching, always watching. Her breath caught. The mark was carved into the stone beside them, fresh, deliberate. Her father's mark. The squad fanned out, rifles raised, tension electric. O'Neill's teeth clenched, Ruiz's hand steady on his weapon, but the figure didn't move, didn't flinch. She stepped forward before she even knew she was moving. The silence around her cracked, but no one stopped her. Maybe they understood. Maybe they knew this wasn't theirs to fight. The wind whipped, carrying dust and fragments of voices long gone. Her boots crunched slow over stone. Closer. And then the figure spoke. Low, rough, but human. You carry his silence. Her chest locked. The voice was older than she expected, worn, frayed, not enemy, not stranger, familiar in the way scars are familiar, painful, permanent. She swallowed hard. Who are you? The figure shifted and the light hit their face. Weathered, scarred, eyes deep with something that wasn't hatred, something worse, regret. I knew him, the figure said. Your father, he saved us once, paid the price, left only the mark so someone would remember. Her throat burned. Her father's face flickered in her mind, his hand on her shoulder, his voice telling her duty would find her. The figure's gaze held hers, and now it found you. Her knees nearly buckled. She wanted to scream, to demand why, to hurl years of silence into the wind. But no sound came, only the burn of tears she refused to let fall. Behind her the squad shifted uneasy. Ruiz called out, voice sharp, "Is this an enemy or not?" The figure's eyes flicked to them, then back to her. Not enemy, not ally, witness. The word cut. She clenched her rifle, the weight of choice pressing down. To fire, to end it, to silence this ghost, or to listen. Her voice came raw. Why follow me? Why mark the walls? Why haunt us? The figure's jaw tightened. Because silence dies if it's not carried forward. He carried it. Now you do. The words struck harder than bullets, because she knew, deep down she knew. This wasn't about victory, or glory, or even survival. It was about bearing the weight no one else could, the duty no one wanted. The child's voice broke through then, small, clear. Don't leave it on her. Everyone turned. Isla stood there, fists clenched, tears streaking their face. She's already carrying too much. The words shattered something inside her, because the child was right. She had carried silence so long it had become her language, her armor, her cage. The figure's gaze softened, almost pity, almost mercy. Then distant, the crack of rifles. The squad spun, instincts sharp. Shadows moved along the far ridge, real enemies this time. Fire sparked, rounds slicing the air. Chaos erupted. Ruiz roared orders. The squad fired back, stone exploding, dust rising. O'Neill pulled the child down, shielding them once again. And she turned back. The figure was gone, vanished into dust and dusk. Like her father, like silence itself. Her chest heaved, but there was no time to grieve. No time to demand answers. Only fire, only survival. She raised her rifle, eyes sharp through tears she couldn't wipe away. Each shot was steady, deliberate. She carved through shadows with precision, with fury sharpened by years of silence. The squad held the line, battered but unbroken. The enemy faltered, their fire thinning, then scattering into the night. And then silence again. Not peace, never peace, but silence that settled heavy. The plateau stank of blood and smoke. The squad slumped, chests heaving, eyes hollow. Ruiz leaned against stone, one hand pressed to a graze on his arm. O'Neill held the child, who finally slept against his shoulder, exhaustion winning over fear. She stood apart, rifle lowered, eyes on the horizon. The figure was gone. The mark remained. Her hands trembled, her chest burned, but her voice, unused for so long, finally broke free. Soft, barely more than breath. I'll carry it. No one answered, no one needed to. The wind carried her words away, scattering them across the stone, into the sky, into the silence that stretched beyond. And in that silence she felt it, not relief, not triumph, something smaller, something heavier. Acceptance. The night swallowed the plateau. Stars blinked alive, indifferent and endless. The squad settled into uneasy rest, too tired to dream. She stayed awake, eyes tracing constellations her father once named for her. Her fingers brushed the carved mark on the stone, rough and sharp against her skin. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And as dawn began to edge the horizon, she finally understood. Duty had found her, and it would not let go.